Good evening, everyone. I think we'll start now. Welcome to the webinar in Champion's Shadow, DSLR camera trapping in the Corbett landscape with Shivang Mehta. This webinar is part of the conservation module of the Wilderness Training Program, which is conducted by RewildEd at the Vanghat Lodge in Corbett in partnership with Rare. Before we begin, please everyone make sure that your mics stay off. And if you have any questions, you can send it in the chat box and we'll get to them later. Kushagra will talk a little bit more about the program. Kushagra hails from Bastar in Chhattisgarh, and he has a master's degree in wildlife science from the Wildlife Institute of India in Dehradun. He is the founder of RewildEd, which is a group of wildlife biologists who are working in conservation, education, and ecology. Over to you, Kushagra.
Thank you, Bhavya. Hello, everyone. I'm Kushagra. Talking about the Wilderness Training Program. The Wilderness and the Wilderness Training Program stand for Wildlife Research, Nature Conservation Leadership, and Sustainability. It is a unique experience in the Ramganga Valley of the Corbett landscape. It aims to provide an immersive experience of wildlife ecology, conservation education, and sustainability. Our host, as you can see in the picture, is the Vanghat Lodge, which is undoubtedly one of the most eco-conscious and remote wildlife lodge in India. Coming to the Wilderness Training Program, it is a field-based program. Here, people with academic background in wildlife science introduce participants to the world of ecology through guided excursions in forest, along with extensive discussions. It offers a wide variety of programs to cater to the interest ranging from that of people who are looking for a more wildlife-oriented experience to corporates looking to mainstream biodiversity conservation in their operations, to even international students looking for a month-long conservation experience in the Indian jungle. The goal here is to help more people across different age group and professions see the natural world in a fresh perspective and also prepare conservation leaders of tomorrow. Throughout the program, we ensure that every taxon is explained with the help of ecological theories, and latest developments in research are presented in the simplest form. We have 5 modules focusing on birds, which we call symphonies of life, mammals, insects, forests, and we have a module on conservation in India, which we call From Indus Valley and Beyond. It is as a part of this conservation module where we discuss wildlife history, wildlife laws, policies, that we are discussing conservation photography in India. And this is a part of a series of webinar which we are doing. So the first webinar started with FW Champions' contribution to Indian wildlife. And just to give a brief introduction about FW, for those people who are joining us today and who have not seen the previous webinar, FW was an Imperial Forest Service officer. He worked in the Himalayan foothills as a DFO. He was passionate about photographing wild animals, especially tigers. He has clicked the first photograph of tiger in wild with the tripwire technique. He has authored 2 books, which are classics in the wildlife history in India, with A Camera in Tigerland and The Jungle in Sunlight and Shadow. He inspired Jim Corbett to take up photography. He was the member of the committee which was set up for the establishment of Haley National Park, which today we know as the Jim Corbett National Park. So he has worked intensively in this particular landscape, which we today know as the Corbett landscape. And he was very passionate about photography, and he was a very great wildlifer. So here are certain pictures which I'm going to show you. So this photograph is taken through the tripwire technique, and reportedly one of the first wild tigers picture. Here you can see another picture, and so these all pictures were taken with the help of tripwire photography, and he used to use tripwire for capturing these photographs. He would put a tripod in a very safe place where he would camouflage it very nicely. He would connect the camera to a magnesium flash with a battery, and his prior knowledge of wildlife with his prior knowledge of wildlife, he would focus uh, accordingly. And the challenge which he faced during that time was mosquitoes, and only one photograph could be taken during the whole night. So today, as a part of this continuation, we are going to discuss DSLR camera trapping as we know it today. Uh, Today we have with us, he needs no introduction, Shivang Mehta. He is the author of the book A Decade with Tigers and Chasing Horizons. He is the fellow associate of the International League of Conservation Photographers, and he's also the brand ambassador of Canon and Columbia Sports. A very warm welcome to Shivang Mehta. Over to you, Shivang.
You're on mute, Shivang.
Thanks a ton for the introduction, and it has been a real pleasure for me to be a part of this program because in the past, ever since the lockdown, I've been a part of tons of wildlife talks pertaining to photography and even DSLR camera trapping. But this particular one is really special for me because this is something which is very close to my heart, which is the Corbett landscape, a landscape from where I started my career. And, and in the next 45 minutes, I would be really happy to showcase some of the experiences which I have had in working in the Corbett landscape, not as a gypsy photographer, but as a photographer who has been on foot exploring the various terrains across the Ramganga and working with various species there. So can you share? Can you see my screen before I start?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, that's very clear.
Okay, so as many of you would know that I started my career from the Corbett landscape many years back, and as any young wildlife professional who is interested in wildlife, and especially hailing from this part of the country, I was heavily into reading Jim Corbett books and all. And from there, I came to know about the work done by FW Champion, and I was aware about some of the images which were created during that time, and he can well be considered as the father of Indian wildlife photography. So I always had this thing in my mind that if there was an opportunity to explore this particular landscape the way FW did during his era, that would be a sheer opportunity as well as an honor to do that. So for many years, I just explored Corbett as a photographer, as a lot of people do, and of course, I was has been a great friend since 2006-7, and I had the pleasure of staying in Vanghat, exploring the Corbett landscape on foot as well, not only outside the park, but as a part of census programs which were happening inside the park. And from there, by that time, there was an advent of DSLR trapping technology in the global wildlife photography space. And somewhere deep in my mind, I had this kind of a desire that maybe sometime in the future, if I'm able to do it, I would definitely like to walk on Champion's footsteps and see wildlife from his perspective. So, tripwire, as you said, it was a in today's time we can use the term primitive technology, but from in his time when he used this technology in early 1900s, I guess that was a very modern technology for someone to come up with kind of a technology where you can photograph wildlife in the night and produce the first ever images of wildlife, tigers, big cats, sloth bears, pangolins, and a plethora of other species which were recorded by him. That was simply remarkable and simply outstanding. And a few years back, when the book was released called Tripwire by James, I was totally blown away with the collection of images which came out. And I don't think that even with the modern day technology we have, the modern day camera gears we have, we can even think of replicating some that kind of a work which he did with all those limitations. So, um, so when I started getting into camera trapping, uh, there were two things which I was always thinking about. That why is the need to do camera trapping? I've been uh, roaming around in a vehicle or even on foot. I've been documenting wildlife, and I've been there in person, seeing things happening in front of me. What is the need of setting up a camera trap? Because I also had that kind of a apprehension that if I'm not there living that particular moment, then what is the point of that photograph? But then I answered those questions myself. There were um, two perspectives. One was the wildlife perspective, and one was a photography perspective. From a wildlife point of view, as photographers or as tourists or wildlife lovers, when we are just roaming around in protected areas, outside protected areas, wherever in a forested area, we are essentially seeing wildlife in front of us and we are documenting that. But there is a plethora of species. There are so many species which cannot be seen because they may be nocturnal. There may be so many species which are just roaming around in the night. So purely from a documentation point of view, I thought that camera trapping uh, is a viable solution, and I should be graduating myself as a photographer and start using this as a technology. The second aspect is the photography point of view, that there are a lot of species like, say, tigers, elephants, leopards, which we may be seeing during the daytime, but essentially even those species are nocturnal. And we as photographers, setting up camera traps, we just end up creating uh, some unique perspectives which may just project the species in a new light. So these were the two vital elements which helped me to graduate towards this form of photography, because I always knew that this journey is not going to be easy, because we are when we are sitting in a vehicle, things are a bit easier because you are seeing something in front of you. In modern day cameras, you are firing frames at 14 frames per second, 20 frames per second in today's time, and you're producing a big volume of content and imagery. But when it comes to camera trapping, images may be trickling down as drops of water. So the failure rate would be really high. So despite of that, just because of these two uh, point of views, I mean these two perspectives, I decided to step into the field of DSLR camera trapping. And for me, nothing could have been better that since I hail from a Corbett lineage, and Corbett is kind of my alma mater. I had the opportunity to work in some of the most pristine habitats right across the Ramganga. So, as I talk today, and if I think about whatever work which I have done in the past uh, 6 to 7 years working in the Corbett habitat with camera traps, I was just fortunate to work in various habitats across the Ramganga. So, and that is something which I would like to showcase today and share with all of you on my various experiences working in the Corbett habitat. So, for a lot of people who do not understand what a DSLR camera trap is, it is basically setting up a mini jungle studio where, on the basis of local intelligence, we identify forest trails, trails which are being used by wildlife, trails which are, in a lot of cases, when we are talking about Corbett right now, so most of the work which has been done, in fact, all of the work which has been done, it has been done in areas outside the protected areas of the national park. So, they are all private pieces of land where local intelligence has been the most vital element behind doing all these projects. So once you start identifying the trails which have been used by animals as well as by human beings, then you start narrowing down a trail on the basis of your your wildlife experience and intelligence, and then you start thinking from an animal's perspective, and then you start putting on a photographer's hat and the entire aspect about the frames, compositions, what is going to look good, and then you actually set up a camera trap. So essentially, while you are sleeping in your camp, at your base camp, your camera is working that time. But it may sound very easy, but there is a lot of preparation and planning which goes behind that. So so my first camera trap project in the Corbett landscape was in 2016 when I worked with Sumanta in Vanghat, and it was a very easy choice for me to work in Vanghat because I'd spent so much time with him, and I'd spent time in his at Vanghat at his property earlier, and I knew that there is a lot of wildlife movement which is happening out there. Plus, if in any kind of a camera trapping project that we are undertaking, if there is some amount of data that that is already there, and which in this case was there because Sumanta was already deploying some of his trail cameras in order to just monitor the movement of wildlife around his place. So it just becomes easier to work in such locations. So Vanghat for me was an immediate choice, and we started working. And in fact, this was not my own project. I was assisting a photographer, an international photographer, friend of mine, who had set up his camera traps during that time. So that image which you see there, that guy is Ben Crank, a very fine photographer, and very experienced photographer. And for me, he's a kind of a mentor when it comes to camera trapping. So, he taught me the field craft all those years back. So, he really wanted to work in the Corbett landscape, and we got into Vanghat, and I was working with him. And, even from a camera trap point of view, I would say even he was not really prepared. So towards the left, you see the image of one of the traps that we had set up in Vanghat. It more looks like a camera temple. So very makeshift kind of arrangement, highly risky. Risky, why? Because we always knew that working in a Corbett landscape is tough, and elephants can be a major threat. So when I talk about setting up camera traps, this is not about setting just a trail cam, which is costing around 5 to 10,000 rupees. This is about setting up a DSLR camera trap where you have a proper DSLR camera attached to a motion sensor, and there are a couple of flashes. So if I calculate the entire cost of an DSLR camera trap inventory for one trap, it comes out to nearly, it may come out to nearly 1.5, 2 lakh rupees. So, and elephants can cause a major damage to traps. And this is something which we were always aware of. And with with that kind of apprehension, we went ahead and did that project with Ben in those days. Uh, so, it was a very strange kind of thing because when we started setting up some of those traps, Ben had come with some kind of research that elephants normally keep away from chili. So he got a kind of a chili powder, and he said that okay, once we set up our traps, we'll just sprinkle this chili powder, and the elephants are not going to bother our traps. So yeah, and he had seen some kind of a documentary on Asian elephants and how researchers were working with camera traps and trying to keep elephants away. So we were like, okay, fine. I mean, if that is going to work, it's it will be good. So we set up the first few camera traps, and we sprinkled a bit of chili powder out there. And he had this kind of a camo netting, which we used to just camouflage the entire camera, up the camera. So, and the chili was being, small amounts of chili. It was a red chili powder which we were sprinkling on the net. So, so once we did that, we didn't have any kind of a wildlife movement for the first few days, and then one of the nights, an elephant came, and what he did was something which we discovered the subsequent day. He did, just trample the camera. He just toppled the camera, and next day when we went to the field just to check the batteries and things like that, the camera was toppled, and we were just trying to figure out what has happened. So I saw that particular camo net, which was used for covering the camera, camouflaging the camera, that was missing. So the elephant had literally taken that camo net in his mouth. He chewed that camo net, and it was thrown probably 50 meters away from the place where the camera trap was set up. And that big camo net, sizing probably 1 meter by 1 meter, he had just made a small uh, ball of it, and it was lying somewhere in the lantana in the bushes. And I went inside and I got that particular piece of cloth. So then I told him that these are Corbett elephants. I don't think you should be experimenting too much with this. So just let your camera traps be. If some damage is going to be happen, if some damage is going to happen, we are already prepared for the damage, because we know that there are elephants in this terrain. So for the next 5 to 6 days, the cameras were just lying that without any kind of a chili protection. And then we got this, a beautiful male tiger in the backdrop of a banyan tree. And this was probably one of the most exhilarating moments for all of us at the Vanghat camp, where when we saw this male tiger, and it was such a beautiful image, the national animal in the backdrop of the national tree, on a camera trap, and in the Corbett landscape, from where wildlife photography all started in India. So for me, it was, it is not my image, but this was just the starting point of what has been an very, very interesting journey with camera trapping in Corbett. Because after this, I decided that there are tigers in this habitat. We all know that, but there are tigers outside the boundaries of the national park. And, this is such a great opportunity to work outside the protected area and document wildlife, uh, document species in a whole new perspective. Um, and the journey would be really tough. The returns would be not as high as what you would get if you're doing normal safaris, but uh, the entire process was very, very interesting for me. So with that, I commenced the second edition of the Vanghat project in the monsoons of 2017, despite of Sumant telling me that, this may not be the great time for working, but still, there was this window of time where I could spare for working in the Vanghat landscape again. And especially with my previous experience of 2016, I had, a lot of ideas on how I would be working and, a lot of new perspectives I would be creating. So, with a lot of hope and enthusiasm, I came back to Vanghat in 2017 monsoons. I clearly remember it was the month of June, where the rains were about to start. I mean, anytime it could have rained so much that probably we would not have access to a vehicle as well. But still, I started working, and our team was constantly setting up camera traps in various locations, and we were just working with one objective till the time we are not happy with an image which probably justifies this entire project. We are not going to go back. So finally, on day 17, this wonderful sub-adult male tiger, he came on one of our traps, and just a couple of images that we got on our traps, and that's when we thought of winding up the project, though I didn't want to, but I knew that the weather is not going to be on our side after this, so we had to wind up the project. So this was, again, I mean, I was very happy, and I mean, I was happy, but I was not satisfied. But I was happy to see a kind of an image which could do some kind of a justice to the kind of work which uh, FW Champion was doing all these years back, because this was this was somewhat looking similar to that. And then for a long period, for at least a period of 14, 15 months, there were a series of failures when it came to my Corbett, Ramganga endeavors and camera trapping. There were a lot of locations where I was working. Probably it was because of the kind of planning which I was doing, the choice of season, um, you know, maybe just wrong locations. But for many, many months, we were just not getting anything on our traps. And I mean, when I say not getting anything, it was literally not getting anything. So, but still, everything when it comes to camera trapping, everything is in experience, and it just helps you to prepare yourself better. It helps you to function your brain better. So um, even this period of failure, when we used to sit together as a team and discuss what has gone wrong, there were a lot of points which, for me, they were just kind of learning blocks for preparing for forthcoming projects. And what are things which I should not be doing, and what are the aspects which I should be thinking about for preparing any kind of a project in the future. And then in 2019 came another um, location in the Ramganga valley, which was a place called Kalakhand, where I worked for a couple of weeks. And so with the entire experience of Vanghat, where elephants were posing to be a threat to cameras, I thought that, okay, fine, let's go one step ahead and devise something called the elephant-proof camera trap boxes. So these were hardwired metal boxes, which I came out with just to prevent my cameras for any kind of elephant damage, because that was a period of time when I thought that, okay, um, the elephants or any kind of a wildlife, if it is being disturbed, it's not because of the flash, because flashes are being fired even by trail cams. The forest department keeps on putting trail cams, and the entire census which has been done inside the protected area. It has been done on trail cams, and those flashes are being fired every night. Probably most of the tigers in that landscape have been flashed by forest department trail cams. So I thought that the only thing which may be disturbing these animals um, would be the camera shutter. Though even that sound of the shutter is very bleak, but that was something which was there in my head, that we need to take care of the camera shutter. And because of these heavy, every metal box was used, it weighs around 15 kilograms. So with such a hard reinforced metal, I thought that the sound of the shutter goes down, and things will be sorted. So with that belief, we started setting up camera traps in the Ramganga Valley again, with this new um, protective casing that we had developed, and we were very happy around it. So this is just a small video showcasing me and my team working on setting up a camera trap in the Ramganga Valley. And this was a very, very interesting and productive trail for me, because this was a trail leading towards the river. And just before I had set up this particular trap, I saw some tiger pug marks and stuff, and some small cat pug marks, maybe leopard cat or something. So I thought that, okay, fine. I mean, let's do this. Let's set up this trap. And next day in the morning, there was a ray of hope, because when we were walking towards this particular camera trap setup, we saw some pug marks, and it was just not one set of pug marks. There was a tigress with two cubs walking towards the camera traps. And it's always a very you have butterflies in your stomach. It's a very interesting feeling when you are walking towards your camera trap and you see pug marks, or you see any kind of track marks of any species, because you know that your camera has recorded something. So as we were going further and further ahead, we thought that, okay, fine. I mean, today is our day. And then, there are times when nature is not favoring you. And this was the entire scenario in front of us. There was a herd of elephants which had come in the previous night, and they had literally smashed the camera left, right, and center. Uh, I was very confident about the fact that the camera was protected in those metal casing. It was, nothing happened to the camera, though the elephant had toppled that particular casing. I guess he would have stood on top of that casing, because even that metal box was buried in the ground. But the flashes and transmitters, receivers, you can just see some of those images in front of you. And for a photographer, it is so heartbreaking to see all his equipments all over the place. I remember it took us 40 to 45 minutes just to gather pieces of this inventory, as everything was like a debris in front of us. And this was the last image which was taken in that particular camera. So basically, if you start joining all the dots together, the elephant herd which came in the night, and one of the elephants, he just explored the camera, and he just started playing around with that camera. And one by one, he picked up a couple of flashes and the sensor. And if elephants start playing around with camera equipments, it can be really lethal, and that is what happened that night. And after that, there would have been a tigress with two cubs that walked on that same trail, but we did not get that image. So yeah, I mean, it was a tremendous setback, and for the first time in the Corbett landscape, I was facing some kind of an issue because of wildlife. But nevertheless, as camera trappers, as a person who had taken this initiative of doing this thing, you need to have a not a big heart, but you need to have a strong heart. And we kept on working on the project, and we documented some interesting species in that landscape, right from the leopard cat walking on the banks of this beautiful stream, and then finally a tiger. So so that's how the third stage of my camera trapping work in Corbett ended, with a kind of a setback, but with some kind of benefits as well, not only in terms of images, but also in terms of a bit more learning about animal behavior and how they can react to technology. Then came the year 2020 and 21, and I had the opportunity to work in another part of the Ramganga Valley, just ahead of Vanghat, in the Jammun area. And this was probably my longest period of camera trapping, where I spent nearly around 50 to 60 days working in this area. And it was really interesting. And because of my previous learning from Vanghat, from Kalakhand and all these areas, I actually knew that I can't afford to lose camera gears, and so we decided to modify our camera trap boxes, and we came out with this idea of putting in these spiked boxes. Though did I did have this thing in my mind that what if animals get hurt because of these spikes? But then after a lot of research, I figured out that there would be a way of putting up these boxes, because the way the forest department conducts their camera trap surveys and the census, if we make use of elephant dungs properly, then elephants would keep away. And apart from elephants, there are no other animals that try to explore these camera traps so minutely. I mean, elephants are the only ones who are very keen about cameras. Having worked in so many other landscapes, all the big cats, they at least bother about your cameras. So I not only devised, I not only modified the entire camera trap setup from a camera perspective, but even for the flashes, because the flashes had faced a lot of damage that time. So I just modified the flashes as well, and had metal casing for the flashes in order to prevent them from any kind of a damage. Because if you're working for a long period of time in any kind of a for any kind of a project, you can't afford to have um, any damage which will which will just impact the project. And so, since I knew that this is some work which I have to do for the next 3 to 4 months, so I spent around a couple of months in thinking about ideas on how to protect the entire camera trap setup. So life in the Ramganga Valley was very interesting. There we were constantly documenting a lot of wildlife, right from a lot of ungulates, spotted deers, coming to water bodies, to barking deers, uh, walking on the trails. In that part of the Ramganga Valley, the location which was presented to me was very, very raw. It was not, I didn't have the um, luxury of having Sumanta's ground knowledge with me. And so I had to apply my own mind in terms of creating trails for animals to walk in, um, because the forest was extremely raw at that time. And so we had to literally cut down the lantana in some areas of that private land so that wildlife can walk around. Otherwise, um, I didn't. I don't think uh, in the natural course nothing would have happened. So after cutting down all these trails, we saw all these uh, positive developments in the form of deers and all using that trail. And then from there, it graduated into some nocturnal species like porcupines. Um, I had that great feeling that elephants had started using some of those trails which were being cut down, and they were not damaging the camera traps as well. So for them, they were least bothered about the cameras. So that was a huge monkey off my shoulder that the cameras are functioning properly, and they will be functioning properly. And the elephant dung uh, approach that we had started using by stuffing all those spikes with the elephant dungs, it was really working well. Leopard cats had also started moving around, so that was also a great thing. That ev- every form of wildlife, whether it is big big fauna or small fauna, all kind of species were using some of the trails which were created out there. And then on one fine day, we got hold of this big male leopard right at the edge of um, uh, the Ramganga. He was walking. Um, I mean, it was a great feeling when we saw this particular image of the leopard, and then with a network of various trail cameras, the small trail cameras, just which we're using for documenting and monitoring movement of wildlife, we figured out the movement pattern of this leopard. And then things just started easier when it came to the to at least one big cat, which is this leopard. So the same leopard was documented walking on another trail in the daytime, um, crossing this log of wood just behind the camp setup. And then we just literally exploited that log of wood by placing camera traps in every location. So this is not the same male leopard, but this is another female uh, which was recorded. So that is something which is so fascinating about DSLR camera trapping, that uh, as you go deeper into it, into a non-protected uh, uh, area of land outside the national park, then you just start recording, not only documenting wildlife and species, but you also start identifying, um, various species. So, for the longest time, we just knew about this male leopard which was moving around. Then suddenly a female came around. In fact, I just showed you that the leopard cat image. After the completion of the Jammun work, when I came back and I was scanning through images, then I figured out that each and every leopard cat which was recorded in Jammu, there would have been at least 8 to 10 leopard cat images. So I figured out that every individual was also very unique because the markings were not matching. So even from a small leopard cat point of view, it was quite surprising to see that there are various areas which have been occupied by different individual leopard cats. So that is the kind of analysis which you can do working in with DSLR camera traps, because the quality of documentation is, it's very high quality, and you can just do a lot of minute pixel analysis of the images you are getting in terms of comparison of markings and patterns of species. So talking about this female leopard, one fine day when I was just planning the day early morning, we normally have a routine of planning a morning and going to set up, either to set up traps or to check the traps or to batteries and all. So one fine morning we were just doing a planning, and then it all began with a game of cricket. So while I was planning the morning with my team, there was a cricket bat lying around, in that central goal ghar, whatever you call it. And so me, along with my assistant, we were just doing a kind of a knocking practice. And I was holding the bat and he was holding the ball. And while I was knocking, I was planning for the day. And as I hit the ball, this guy, he caught hold of the ball, and immediately he saw something on the tree, and he just started shouting, "There's a leopard, there's a leopard." And immediately, we just went and documented this leopard sitting on a tree, right at the place where we were playing the game. So, so the leopard was quite peaceful, and we spent some time with the leopard, and then she just vanished in the forest. And then I thought of going to check one of my traps, which was quite at a regular location where you saw all those leopard images in the previous slides. And as soon as I stepped out, I saw a kind of a blood trail, and we kept following that blood trail, which led us to a piece of lantana where we spotted a spotted deer kill inside the lantana. So I could actually join the dots. I figured out that, okay, fine, this leopard would have come in the night, made a kill, and it dragged that kill to the lantana. And now, early at 6:30, she just decided to rest up in the tree, and that's when we spotted her. So immediately, I just decided to change the location of one of my traps, and I pushed it towards the kill area where the cheetal kill was lying down. And the following night was a very, very interesting night where this female came back to the kill. And I have we say that animals get disturbed because of camera traps and flashes. So this was one clear example where this one female leopard sat in front of a camera trap. She would have been flashed literally 70 to 80 times, because when I went to check the images in the morning, there were around 80 to 90 images of this leopard eating a kill. And next day when I went there, the kill was still there, and the female had disappeared, and then she came back in the evening to finish off a kill. So she was least bothered about the placement of a camera next to the kill. So, uh, I mean, it was a very fascinating behavior for me to document because um, before this series of images, I'm just showcasing two of them because I can't showcase around 80 images. Um, before this series of images, I always knew, I always believed that probably animals would come to a camera trap, whether it is a departmental trap, whether it is a DSLR trap, and if they are flashed, they'll probably get disturbed. But these are pure evidences that animals, they don't necessarily get disturbed because of a flash which is firing at 1/250th of a second. It's actually uh, quicker than the time your eyelid can blink. So, so that was a really interesting thing for me to see and observe during this particular sighting. So, what was lacking during this entire schedule? The stripes were I was not just able to get any kind of tiger movement on my traps, and this was something which was just bothering me so much that a place where uh, and it had just started building on my ego as well, that I've worked in the Ramganga Valley, I've worked in Vanghat. I know that there are tigers out here, and I can see their pug marks, I can see everything, they're all traces, but the tigers have just been eluding me somehow. And just to give you an example of how the frustration builds up, if you're working in a particular area for a continued period of 80, 90 days, and then on one of the occasions, you can just see that was a camera which I had set up on one of the trails, and uh, you know, it, I was so curious to know what happens in the night when it comes to these tigers. So I'd actually set up a trail cam overlooking this particular camera just to record what happens in the night. And a tiger comes in the night, and rather than walking past this camera, it just goes behind this camera because there's a small trail which was not visible to my naked eyes. So there was this small little trail which leads up to the river. So it just went on that side. And coincidentally, I mean, this was a good documentary record for me because I compared this particular image to the tiger image which I had photographed on a camera trap, which I showed during the Kalakhand project, and they both were the same tigers. So this male tiger was sharing that particular habitat. I mean, these properties have been given names, but wildlife doesn't know whether tiger doesn't know whether it's in Vanghat or it's in Kalakhand or Jammu. So that kind of data is also valuable for any person who is doing some serious work in that landscape. So anyways, this tiger, you can see the time 7:15 in the evening on the 18th of December, which is exactly around 1 year back. This tiger had eluded one of my camera traps by not walking past the camera trap. We went behind the camera trap. And on the 19th of December at 3 o'clock in the morning, the same tiger, it came back, and it would have probably, it was just walking on the same trail, because next day when I went towards the camera, again, there was a tremendous ray of hope because I was following the pug marks of a tiger on foot, which was going my camera, and I thought that, oh, finally today is the day, and this particular project will be, I'll be winding up this project with a tiger image as well. And then I checked the camera, there was no image, and it just baffled me that what has gone wrong. And then we trail cam, and we saw that the tiger came to that camera, and it just jumped over that camera and went off. And I was just tearing my hair apart. But this is nature. You can't help it. I mean, if it is not there, it is not there. You can't do anything about it. So, um, so a couple of days after this date, on the 22nd or 23rd of December, if I remember correctly, I decided to wind up the project because if things are not going your way, you can't really push for it. And I knew that this particular month has been really successful in documenting so many other species. But when it comes to the tiger, it has just been eluding me. And this was a clear example that, things were not going in my favor. So, so I just, wrapped up the project and came back. And then uh, just a few months back, in July 2022, I went back with a mission uh, purely to get the tiger, because on my trail cams, which were set up out there, we got some records that the striped cat has started moving again. So I just went back and I thought that, okay, fine. Um, what I was trying to accomplish that time, let me start doing it now. So, so nature, nature is a great leveler. Leveler. At times, you see so many failures, and at times you see a lot of success. But nature can level it anytime. So, on day one of this schedule, I went back to the same locations where the cats had been eluding us, and uh, whatever you saw in the previous slides. Uh, and there were some pug marks. And on the basis of those pug marks, something just struck in my mind that, okay, fine, there is this tiger which is moving around, and there are these pug marks on this trail. So let me just populate this trail with numerous camera traps. And this time, um, you know, I'll be more careful by hiding and camouflaging my camera traps better, by carefully analyzing the trails, because when it comes to lantana, it's very difficult to read from where an animal can just move off through a small tunnel in the lantana. So, so we just applied ourselves better, and we just set up a network of 4 camera traps in one day. And I mean, it was purely just because of the fact that if you start working after lunch, you just have a window of 4 to 5 hours, and I had more camera traps, but all I could manage was setting up 4 camera traps after lunch. And within a period of 9 hours, next day in the morning, when we went to the same location, that there was a tiger which walked through our first trap, and that was the image. The same tiger walked through a second, and that was the image. The same tiger walked through a third trap, which I just experimented by climbing up a tree and setting up a camera trap facing downwards, just to get a kind of a aerial perspective of a tiger walking on a trail in Corbett. So that was the third image, and then it was the fourth image. So 4 camera traps set up on one trail after nearly 80 to 90 days of work in a Corbett landscape where there were no tigers till now. And suddenly in one night, everything transformed. So that is the beauty of Corbett, and that is the beauty of Corbett tigers, and that is the beauty of camera trapping in this location. So, but all good things, they come at a price. While I was working in July, um, setting up these cameras on this particular trail, um, the water level in the river, it's suddenly started increasing, and one in the morning I just lost an entire camera traps setup, which was swept away by the river. So, in case any one of you is exploring the Corbett landscape, the Ramganga Valley on foot, right from Vanghat to Kalakhand, and if you're walking on foot, and if you find any camera setup buried somewhere in the river, flashes and all, just give me a call, because that would be mine. So that's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Shivang. Those were some really lovely photographs, and especially the picture of the leopard which you had shown. It was amazing. So camera traps do really give a very nice perspective about wildlife which is there, and I think these photographs have the ability to evoke awe in the minds and hearts of people, and I'm pretty sure they will do a lot for the cause of conservation. What is heartening here is that 100 years apart, we are still seeing the same kind of species which FW had recorded in his time, and I'm pretty sure he would be very happy. And something which really I was thinking while looking at these photographs was that FW's photographs were published in international journals, and way back in especially the magazines of Britain, which James was mentioning last time when he was talking about FW's work. And that was one of the reasons which must have brought a lot of attention to this landscape, and hence the Haley National Park was formed. And today, through your images, I think the mission is continuing, and we are having more conservation to this landscape. So thank you very much. And now we open the session for questions.
We have some comments right now about the photographs, Shivang. Really, Himanshu says, really amazing series of photographs. Shivangi says, every photograph is amazing, so they were really lovely. Any questions, anyone? Sorry. So you're saying something, Shivang?
I'm saying thanks, Barbara. Thanks everyone for appreciating the images.
We have one question from Himanshu. Any other observations with the camera placed around the carcass? Any other species?
Yeah, of course. The last image which I showcased in the concluding slide, once the leopard had consumed everything, there was a small Indian civet which was hovering around.
Sir, is it possible to camera trap elusive pheasants like the Western Tragopan?
Of course it is. I mean, I don't think there's any species in the world which cannot be camera trapped. All what is needed is, a lot of local intelligence, research evidence and data. So if, these three things combined together, then I guess, there is no species in the world, be it the most rarest pheasant or the rarest cat, everything can be documented. So I guess since we are talking about the Western Tragopan, then I know of people who have done work in the Great Himalayan National Park, and they've tried to get it on camera trap. So that should be possible.
Great, thanks. Someone has asked, thank you for taking time out and sharing your experiences and insights. Very interesting. I had a question. What are the uses of using a DSLR over the trail cameras like Curryback, Moultrie, etc., other than good image quality? Is the huge cost of the equipment and them being destroyed in the wild make the exercise worth the effort? Sorry if I missed it in the presentation.
So the only difference between both the technologies are essentially the same. There is the motion sensor. Any subject moves in front of the sensor, you are able to record the movement. But with a DSLR, just the quality of output is much finer. It is much more. The resolution of the images is better, and from if I think about it from a photographer's point of view, then I would actually use a combination of trail cameras like that and stuff and DSLRs, because I actually do that. I mean, we do monitor a lot of stuff using our trail cameras just to ensure, just to know where the movement is happening, what is the pattern. And once we are sure about that, that's when we deploy the DSLR setup to get a proper record. And with these kind of records, you can the images can be used for any kind of professional work. They can probably publish it in a better manner. So essentially, trail cameras are great for just the documentation part, but a combination of trail cameras and DSLRs will help to ensure that you create some good records.
Great, thank you. I think Sumanta sir has raised his hand.
Yes, Sumanta sir.
All right. Thank you so much, Shivang. I think it was just fascinating to to see the wildlife in our backyard through your eyes. It's really sort of fascinating. I think what's really fascinating, some people are asking that why
Wildlife in your backyard.
DSLR.
I was just fortunate enough to document.
Yeah. So so what I was I think the one thing that is evident from here, the difference in capturing the natural history moment is that I think what comes through the equipment that you've used, and of course your experience and the art form. I think at the end of it, all of this happens when you have an eye for art. That's what it is. It's not just equipment. It's not just I think photography, but it's people like you who are able to get that awesomeness of nature and wilderness from your work. And the one thing which is evident from it is just the whole things that we would otherwise never be able to capture, as you call as you were calling you use the term called the Jeep packed photographers or something like that. It's, of course, they do a wonderful job as well, just to sort of document a rare fauna. But I think with the camera trap, that's absolutely evident that those moments which are captured are awesome. I have a question also to our Wildlife Institute partners, and the question is that how can we use this wonderful technology, our backyards, all of us who live either in very close proximity to say tiger habitats and all this, plus also somebody was asking, I think, that how do you use it in an urban space? All of us remember the David Attenborough images of leopard in Bombay, in the outskirts of Bombay, and how awesome it was. But so my question to the Wildlife Institute team was that how do we kind of share all this data with the scientific community and to organizations like the Wildlife Institute, so that it is something that serves the cause of conservation for, as Shivang was using this term, which is outside the protected areas, the peripheral areas where the villages are, where the lodges are, So how can we use this? Is there how does it work? Can it be used I mean, can we partner with organizations and, so that we can share all this and, is there is there a way to sort of do that? So this is, I'm asking to Bhavya and to Kushagra and to
yeah.
Abhi,
So basically, whenever they have these operations for camera trapping animals, mostly they are within the boundaries of protected areas, and only in certain times they go beyond the protected areas and do these proper census-based camera trapping and all. As of now, I do not know of any portal where you can as in not for birds and not for mammals like tigers and leopards, but for birds, yes, there is something called citizen science where you can pull up your data and talk about sightings which you have had in your backyards. But I do not recall any specific forum or portal where the data from the mammalian taxa can be put. If anyone knows, please share it with us.
Yeah, so Himanshu is saying there's the India Biodiversity Portal. Also, iNaturalist does take photographs, and I'm sure if you approach your local forest department, they will be happy only to know that if you've got photos of a tiger or leopard or other animals. There's also a forum and a website called Wild Canids, I think. So they take information specifically about the different wild canid species in India. So from dhole, jackals, wolf, and all various fox species. So if anyone gets any photos of those, which especially are more common around, you're more likely to see those around in urban areas and semi-urban or in rural areas, especially jackals. You can share the location data and the photographs with them as well. Or you can just approach your local conservation organizations or the forest department. If anyone's interested, you can tie up with them if you feel like doing any camera trapping and you have a camera. Or you can see if there's if the Wildlife Institute or someone else is working in that area. Himanshu is also saying you can check mammalsofindia.org. Thank you. Yeah.
Just to add to that, I mean, apart from the facts with both of you mentioned about the forums where information and data can be shared from a citizen science point of view, my experience about when it comes to doing camera trapping in areas outside protected areas, working with communities, not only in the Corbett landscape, but also, I've done extensive work in Eastern Himalayas. Even as I speak, there's a project which is going on in Eastern Himalayas, is that, the more you work in these kind of locations, because of the kind of work, a photographer or, even from a research point of view, any kind of a work which is going on in these habitats, there's a lot of local awareness which is created around species. So whether it is Corbett, whether it is Eastern Himalayas, people just, even from a local point of view, from a villager's point of view, people know about tigers or leopards or elephants and the presence of these flagship species in that habitat. But once you show them, high quality records and data of, say, a leopard cat or a civet, or, in the Corbett landscape, we have recorded so many species from leopard cats to small Indian civet, to the mass palm civet. In Eastern Himalayas, in April, we ended up recording a black mouthed golden cat, for example, which probably, leave apart me as a photographer, but even the locals out there, they had never even seen a black mouthed golden cat. So immediately there is a kind of a awareness level which goes high. And in today's time, I was there in the month of October for a month, and I was talking to the villagers and all. Each and every kid in that village knew about the presence of a black-mouthed golden cat, for instance. So, it's a very interesting transformation which happens at a community level when you are doing these kind of projects, because it's not about, where you are staying. I'm staying in Vanghat, working with Sumanta and his team. If there is a kind of a record which is being generated, it is going to have a kind of effect in the entire landscape. So, and the awareness would be spread in the entire landscape. So this has been my observation working, when in these kind of locations and on these kind of projects.
Thanks, Shivang. I think that's a very important point you just made about working with the local communities, both learning from them and in, increasing awareness. I'll just take another 2 or 3 more questions. We have quite a few. So one, which I think, Kush, I think this one you can answer. Can you tell me more about the wilderness program? Is it open for everyone or only people with a wildlife background?
Okay, so the wilderness training program is, it tries to reach the cause of conservation to people across different ages, profession, and even national boundaries. So it is open for everyone, starting from the age of 13 to last time we had a participant. So like in Vanghat, there are people who are very aged people, veteran people who are coming to just enjoy the whole wilderness experience. Coming to the wilderness training program, one thing which we try to make sure that, because there's a lot of walking involved, so we require some kind of physical fitness, not to a great extent, but yes, we do walk 5-6 kilometers almost in every day, and there are a lot of activities involved in that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Kush. I'll ask another 1 or 2 questions. So before we wrap up, there's a few. Shivang, so is it, Javed is asking, is it possible to photograph a leopard living in urban area? If yes, what would be the challenges for using a DSLR camera in rural areas?
Of course, Javed, it would be possible to photograph leopards or any kind of wildlife living in urban areas. And, that is a kind of camera trap imagery which I love to see, and I love to do as well, because it just showcases the element of coexistence and just the sheer greatness of this country as well, where humans and animals tend to coexist. The only challenge is how you can protect your cameras. So you would have seen a lot of leopard images being photographed in Mumbai. So I guess if you are really certain about the fact that your cameras are your cameras are safe, not because of wildlife related issues, but because of human issues, your cameras are not stolen. Either you work very closely with the communities, or the people staying in those urban habitats, so that your cameras are really protected. But that is the key element which you need to figure out. If you are able to crack that particular puzzle, then I guess that is the kind of camera trapping project, and that is the kind of work which you should definitely be going in for, because working in wild habitats is fine. It's and it's your cameras are totally safe. The only thing which can damage your cameras are animals, but humans can be more lethal to cameras, because they'll just pick up the camera and so that is something which you need to take care of.
The problem with having opposable thumbs. Honey is asking, when is the next training program taking place? Our next ones will be in January from 18th to 23rd and 25th to 30th. We are taking signups. If anyone would like to join, please contact us. Okay, last two questions. We're getting a lot. From Prashant, Shivang, do you have any plans to camera trap snow leopard?
Um, I mean, I have plans to camera trap a lot of species, and snow leopards is one of them. But it's not a, I don't think it's a species which uh, in today's time you need to apply too much of brain around it, because that's a work which has been done, and it has been done by quite a few people in the past. So yes, snow leopards would be one of my target species, uh, uh, and let's see, maybe 2022.
We'd love to see those photos when you do. Okay, last one, I think, for tonight. Um, so Himanshu has asked, having done camera trapping for small carnivores, civets, mongooses, one thing I have realized is the difference in the trails used by different animals. To some extent, also the importance of smell, which animal could figure out way better than us. Using elephant dung is a nice way. Any alternative in landscapes where elephants don't exist? Any upcoming projects or interest in focusing on small carnivores?
Yeah, so I've tried a lot of things. I mean, I've tried a lot of stupid things also, right from using uh, perfumes, because a lot of there has been a lot of internet data which had told me that there's a kind of a perfume which resembles a cat pheromone. So I've used that also, but now I'm just refraining from doing any kind of unnatural things. So, but yeah, there are certain natural things which I still do. I own a cat, and in my house, and whenever I go to the vet, I ask for a small pheromone sample, so I collect it in a kind of a tube or something, and I use it for. So the thing is that when you are setting up a trap, the only thing which you need to do is that your subject comes to a particular location, and it just gives you a second. Uh, because there may be, I mean, Corbett, from that point of view, it is a kind of an easier terrain, because a lot of these tigers and all, they are used to traps being set up in the forest area, right? If you're going to trickier locations, if you're working in, say, Eastern Himalayas right now, where my current project is going on, and that golden cat which I got on a camera trap, it just gave me one image. So if you can use some kind of, um, some kind of, say, a pheromone, uh, just to ensure that it stays for a fraction of a second more, then it may work. So yeah, I mean, uh, I guess the more natural you try to keep it, the better it would be. Because in my past experience, whenever, I've tried to do things on the basis of internet research, which I have done, that okay, fine, this CK perfume works brilliantly for cats, and it may lure cats. It just backfires. Very similar to the red chili, that also backfired in case of elephants long time back. So after that, I've just refrained from doing any kind of unnatural things.
Thank you, Shivang. That was really interesting. Now, I really want to try using, cat pheromones or dog pheromones on camera traps and see that could, I think, make a really interesting study.
It does work. In fact, a good friend who visited Vanghat, Ben Crank, that tiger photograph you saw during the presentation, he is actually a veterinary doctor by profession, and so these are things which I learned from him, that when he used to come to India for doing stuff on fishing cats and things like that, he had some pheromone samples with him in his chicken baggage, and we try to use that. So fishing cats out here in Dudhwa used to respond to cat pheromones being collected in the UK. So, so that is something which definitely works, because at the end of the day, it's a cat pheromone.
Great. I think I'm very tempted now to study that sometime in the future. Okay, I think we can wrap up now for tonight. I think we can, if you have any more questions, you can email us. I have shared our email IDs, Shivang. If you could share your email ID, or you can send it to, if anyone has any questions, you can share it with, you can ask Shivang on his Instagram, which I think is @shivang.mehta. I've shared our Vanghat and RewildEd email IDs in the chat, and a phone number. Yeah, I'll just share a phone number which someone can contact as well. For the training program. And I think now we can wrap up. Thank you so much, Shivang. This has been a really, really, really informative, very nice talk. I think everyone has really enjoyed all the photographs and everything.
Thank you, Bhavya. Thank you, Kush. And thank you, Sumanta.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it was just fantastic. We will also have a recording of this, which we're going to put up along with, email addresses, phone numbers and all of that to get into something which is actually of the future. I think, I do hope many, there are people who get interested in this wonderful, marvelous hobby of yours. And, so it's time to kind of probe a bit more deeper and do something about it. I think at the end of it, if it goes a little bit beyond hobby and goes and serves conservation, it's such a win-win situation. And I think all of us want that, So with that note, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who joined in.
Thank you.